Like, subscribe, and share. Story 1. Something in the Warehouse, The Lost Souls. Halloween night, a cold breeze swept through the nearly empty streets as James pulled into the parking lot of Hollow Point Storage and Logistics, a sprawling warehouse on the edge of town. It was his first night as a security guard, and his manager had been quick to assure him it would be an easy gig, just a few patrols, checking cameras, and watching the doors. Most people didn't come around on Halloween night. Nothing ever happens here, his boss had said over the phone earlier that day. It's just boxes and old museum junk. A quiet night, guaranteed. James needed the job, so he took it. But as he stepped out of his car and saw the enormous, silent warehouse looming in the foggy night, he felt an uneasy twist in his stomach. Something about the building didn't sit right with him. Maybe it was how the structure seemed to sag under the weight of time, or how the air felt thick and stale, even outside. He rubbed his hands together and pulled his jacket tighter around him. 8 hours until his shift was over. It was just a building filled with crates and artifacts. What could possibly go wrong? He swiped his badge at the side door, and with a low mechanical beep, the door unlocked. "Happy Halloween," James muttered to himself as he stepped inside. The inside of the warehouse was eerily quiet. Towering shelves filled with crates, pallets, and cardboard boxes stretched far into the distance, disappearing into the shadows. It was too quiet, the kind of silence that made James hyper-aware of every small sound. His own footsteps echoed unnaturally loud on the concrete floor. The lights buzzed overhead, flickering slightly. He'd been warned that the electrical system was old and occasionally glitchy, especially in the far corners of the building. A surveillance room just off the main entrance housed the camera feeds, showing rows and rows of storage racks from different angles. The black and white monitors blinked, displaying empty hallways and crates that hadn't moved in years. James settled into the chair in front of the console, grabbed a cold cup of coffee left behind by the previous shift, and flicked through the camera feeds out of habit. Nothing, just empty aisles and endless rows of boxes. But as he leaned back, something on one of the screens caught his eye. A shadow, just on the edge of the frame, near one of the far storage racks. It looked like a figure moving through the shelves. James leaned closer, but before he could make out anything, the screen flickered and the shadow was gone. He frowned and tapped the monitor. "Old equipment," he muttered. "Probably just a glitch." As James settled into the routine of his patrol, he noticed something odd in the logbook near the security desk. A new delivery had arrived earlier that day, an unregistered crate with no documentation. The box had been placed in storage bay 13, tucked away in the deepest part of the warehouse. He checked the notes from the day shift. "Do not open. Wait for instructions." "Great," James muttered. He hated how vague the notes were. What kind of delivery gets dropped off with no paperwork? And why the warning not to open it? Still, it wasn't his problem. His job was just to watch the place and make sure nothing went missing, or so he thought. As the hours dragged on and the building grew colder, James decided to stretch his legs and do his first patrol. He grabbed his flashlight and began walking down the aisles, the beam cutting through the darkened shelves. The only sound was the soft hum of the lights and the distant groan of metal racks settling under the weight of countless crates. He reached storage bay 13 after a few minutes. The area was darker than the rest of the warehouse, and the flickering lights cast long, shifting shadows. At the center of the bay was the new crate, an old wooden box bound with thick iron bands. James ran his hand along the rough wood. It felt ancient, like something that shouldn't belong in a modern warehouse. Fade symbols were scratched into the surface, but they were too worn to read. He checked the label taped to the side. No description, no sender ... Weird. He resisted the temptation to open it. Whatever was inside, it wasn't his problem. He turned to leave, and that's when the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the room. James froze, gripping his flashlight as his heart thudded against his ribs. The beam of his light seemed smaller somehow, swallowed by the vast shadows around him. Just the old wiring, James muttered to himself. Though he didn't believe it, something was wrong. He reached for his radio to call his supervisor, but the radio only emitted static. Then came the sound, soft at first, like a whisper of movement. Something was shifting between the shelves. James swung his flashlight toward the noise, but the beam only revealed empty aisles. The sound grew louder, scraping, shuffling, as if something heavy was dragging across the floor. He turned slowly, the hair on the back of his neck standing on end. From the corner of his eye, James saw the crate in bay 13 move. It was slight of shift, like something inside was testing the strength of the box. He heard the creak of wood bending under pressure, and the iron bands around the crate groaned as they strained against whatever was inside. A soft, low whisper filled the air, too faint to understand. But one thing was clear, something in the crate was awake. Before James could react, the crate burst open with a deafening crack, sending shards of wood flying across the floor. The iron bands snapped like brittle twigs. James stumbled backward, flashlight shaking in his hand, as something crawled out of the shattered crate. At first, it looked like a twisted shadow, an inky, shifting form that didn't belong in the realm of the living. Its limbs were long and unnaturally thin, and its face was hidden beneath a shroud of black mist, revealing only a set of glowing yellow eyes. The air grew colder than James had ever felt, and the entity's presence seemed to press down on his chest, suffocating him with fear. The creature moved toward him with a jerking, unnatural gait, as if it was adjusting to being free after a long imprisonment. Its whispers grew louder, filling James's mind with incoherent words that twisted and turned into fragmented thoughts. You shouldn't be here. We waited so long. Halloween belongs to us. James stumbled back, dropping his flashlight. The beam flickered as it rolled across the floor, illuminating the monster's grotesque, shifting form. He turned and ran, heart pounding, but the creature followed, gliding silently between the shelves, closing the distance with terrifying speed. James sprinted toward the surveillance room, desperate to lock himself inside. As he ran, the lights flickered erratically, casting strange, distorted shadows across the walls. The warehouse seemed to warp and twist around him, as if the building itself was shifting into another reality. He reached the surveillance room, slammed the door behind him, and locked it. His breath came in ragged gasps as he leaned against the door, trying to calm down. But when he looked at the monitors, his heart sank. The cameras showed nothing, no creature, no sign of movement. It was as if the thing chasing him didn't exist at all. But he knew what he had seen. It was real, and it was still out there, somewhere in the dark. Then, on one of the screens, James saw something that made his blood run cold. A new message had appeared on the wall of Bay 13, written in jagged letters across the concrete. One soul every Halloween. Yours will do. The meaning hit him like a punch to the gut. The creature had been locked away, dormant, only to awaken on Halloween night, and it needed a soul to remain in prison for another year. And tonight, James was the only soul in the building. The lights outside the surveillance room flickered again, and the air grew colder. James knew he couldn't hide forever. The entity was coming for him. His only chance was to make it until morning. If he could survive until sunrise, maybe the creature would be forced back into its prison. He grabbed his flashlight and yanked open the door, sprinting back into the maze of storage racks. The creature's whispers echoed through the aisles, growing louder with every step he took. Run, run, you won't escape. James pushed himself harder, his legs burning as he dodged between shelves. He spotted an emergency exit sign glowing faintly in the distance and made a break for it. But just as he reached the door, the creature appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Its yellow eyes burned with hunger, and its shadowy lens stretched toward him, ready to claim his soul. In a last, desperate move, James swung the flashlight directly at the entity's face. The light seemed to burn the creature, making it recoil with a deafening screech. James didn't wait. He threw open the exit door and stumbled into the cold night air, collapsing onto the pavement just as the first rays of morning sunlight crept over the horizon. James quit the job the next day, but the memory of the creature never left him. He tried to tell his manager, but no one believed him. They wrote off the shattered crate as an accident, and the strange message on the wall was scrubbed away without a second thought. But James knew the truth. Every Halloween the creature awakens, and someone must be there to contain it or sacrifice their soul. And as the next Halloween approached, James received a message from an unknown number. New shift available. Halloween night. Are you in? Story 2. Don't answer the silent call. On Halloween night, the streets outside Emma's apartment were alive with the sounds of trick-or-treaters, music from nearby parties, and laughter drifting through the crisp autumn air. But Emma was spending the night alone. She wasn't much of a party person, and after a long week at work, all she wanted was to curl up on the couch with some popcorn and a horror movie. Just as she settled into her blanket, the lights dimmed for a moment, just a flicker before steadying. She frowned but shrugged it off. Old wiring, she thought. Her building was notorious for small electrical quirks. She was halfway through her second movie when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Emma glanced at the screen. It was a call from an unknown number. For a moment, she hesitated. She never answered calls from numbers she didn't recognize, especially not this late at night. But something compelled her to pick up, as if an invisible hand was urging her to press accept. She put the phone to her ear. Hello. For a moment, there was nothing but static on the line. Then a woman's voice whispered, Emma ... It's me, don't hang up. Emma sat up straight, her heart racing. The voice sounded oddly familiar. Who is this? She asked cautiously. The voice on the other end paused for a moment before replying, I'm you, from the future. Emma blinked, her pulse quickening. What kind of joke is this? It's not a joke, her voice said. It was eerie, hearing her own voice speaking back to her, but there was something different about it, something urgent and full of fear. You need to listen. There isn't much time. Emma swallowed hard, trying to push away the rising panic in her chest. If this is a prank, it's not funny. It's not a prank, the other Emma snapped. You need to stay inside. Don't leave your apartment tonight, no matter what. If you leave, you won't make it back. Emma's fingers tightened around the phone. What the hell are you talking about? Why shouldn't I leave? The voice on the line went quiet for a moment, as if considering what to say. Then, in a low, trembling whisper, because I didn't listen, and now I'm trapped. I'm calling you to stop it from happening again. Emma's blood ran cold. Again. What do you mean trapped? She whispered. Before the other Emma could answer, the line went dead, and all Emma was left with was the low hum of static. She stared at the phone, her heart pounding. The rational part of her brain told her it had to be some kind of elaborate Halloween prank. Someone had to be messing with her. But deep down, something told her it was real. And that scared her more than anything. Emma sat frozen on the couch, staring at her phone as if it might bite her. After a few minutes, she tried to dismiss the call as a prank or some kind of weird Halloween joke. Maybe one of her friends was playing a trick on her, and she'd find out about it in the morning. But just as she began to relax, her phone buzzed again, the same unknown number. She hesitated, fear twisting her gut. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Every instinct told her to ignore it, to toss the phone across the room, and pretend the call never happened. But curiosity and a gnawing sense of dread got the better of her. She answered, Hello. The static was louder this time, and the voice on the other end sounded more frantic. "Emma, you have to listen to me. He's coming. You need to stay away from the corner of Blair Street, do you hear me? Stay away from Blair Street." "Who's coming?" Emma whispered, gripping the phone tighter. "The man in the gray coat. He'll find you if you leave. Whatever you do, don't go out tonight." The panic in her own voice was palpable. "You can't escape him. He'll make sure you don't." The call cut off abruptly, leaving Emma sitting in stunned silence. Blair Street, that was just a few blocks away. Why would her future self be warning her about a man on Blair Street? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knocking at the front door. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't buzzed anyone into the building, and she wasn't expecting visitors. The knocking came again, louder this time, 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Whatever you do, don't open the door." Emma's heart raced. She stood frozen in place, staring at the door. The peephole felt like it was miles away, but she forced herself to take slow, careful steps toward it. When she finally pressed her eye to the tiny glass circle, she saw ... No one. The hallway was empty. Just the dim light flickering above, and the sound of her own breath in her ears. Then, her phone buzzed again, a notification from her ride-share app. "Your ride has arrived?" Her stomach flipped. She hadn't ordered a ride. Curious and terrified, Emma opened the app. It showed a driver named Tom waiting outside, his car idling at the curb. She peeked through her apartment window. There it was, a black sedan parked on the street below. She could see the driver's silhouette sitting motionless behind the wheel. But there was something wrong with the way he sat, too stiff, like a mannequin propped up in the seat. Then the phone rang again. Emma answered with trembling hands. The voice on the other end was urgent, almost hysterical. "Do not get in that car. I made that mistake, and now I'm stuck in the loop. He isn't a driver. He's something else. If you get in that car, you'll never come back." Emma's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. "What loop? What are you talking about? You'll be stuck." "Emma," the voice whispered. "It all starts with that ride. Once you get in, there's no way out." She looked down at the black sedan again. The drivers had snapped toward her window, as if sensing her gaze. Even from the second floor, Emma could feel his ice-cold, unfeeling locked onto her. "Don't answer the door. Don't leave the apartment," the voice on the phone begged. "Stay inside until morning. That's the only way to break the loop." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to stay put, to wait until morning. But something strange happened. A powerful, almost irresistible urge to leave her apartment washed over her, as if an invisible force was nudging her toward the door. She glanced down at the black sedan again. The driver hadn't moved, but the engine continued to hum quietly, waiting for her. Her phone buzzed with one final text. "If you leave, it starts all over again." Emma squeezed her eyes shut, willing the urge to leave to pass. But the harder she fought it, the stronger it became, pulling at her like a tide, dragging her toward the door. She reached for the handle, her hand shaking uncontrollably. The moment she opened the door, the hallway outside seemed to stretch and distort, as if reality itself were unraveling. She felt dizzy, as though she were falling through space. Her ears buzzed with static, and a strange sense of déjà vu washed over her, like she had done this all before. Without thinking, she walked down the stairs and out into the street. The black sedan idled at the curb, the driver's pale, expressionless face barely visible in the shadows. The passenger door swung open, waiting for her. Emma's phone buzzed one last time. She looked down at the screen. "You've made the same mistake I did." Her body moved on its own, as if controlled by some unseen force. She slid into the back seat of the car, and the door slammed shut behind her with a deafening thud. The driver turned toward her slowly, his face twisting into an inhuman grin. "Welcome back, Emma," he whispered. "Let's try again, shall we?" The black sedan pulled away from the curb and vanished into the fog. In her apartment, Emma's phone buzzed. An unknown number was calling, and somewhere, trapped between moments in time, Emma answered the call again, just as she always had, and just as she always would. Story 3. Masks of the Dead, The Curse of Faces. The town of Greystone Hollow had a peculiar tradition. Every Halloween, every resident, young and old, wore a handcrafted mask passed down through generations. These weren't store-bought plastic masks, but elaborate, sometimes grotesque creations made of leather, wood, and fabric, each carefully preserved over the years. Our ancestors wore them to protect us from evil spirits, Olivia's grandmother had told her once. As long as we wear the masks on Halloween night, we'll be safe. No one really questioned the tradition. It had simply always been this way. At dusk on Halloween, the streets filled with people in strange, expressionless masks. Some looked like animals, others were twisted into grimacing faces, and a few bore serene, otherworldly smiles. This year was Olivia's first time back in town after years of being away at college. Her parents had insisted she come home for Halloween. It's important, her mother had said cryptically. It's not just for show. You have to wear the mask. Olivia thought it was old-fashioned and silly, but she decided to humor them. One more Halloween in Greystone. How bad could it be? Her mother handed her a mask, a beautiful thing made of smooth black leather, shaped like a crow's face, with feathers sewn around the edges. It was surprisingly heavy in her hands. Make sure you keep it on, her mother warned. No matter what happens tonight, by sunset, the entire town had transformed. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered on every porch, scarecrows lined the streets, and the air smelled of cider and burning leaves. Children in costumes roamed door to door, clutching pillowcases full of candy. Olivia slipped the mask over her face, adjusting the straps until it fit snugly. It was strange how wearing it made her feel disconnected from herself, like she was someone or something else entirely. The narrow eye holes limited her vision, adding to the unsettling sensation. Her parents were already masked. Her father wore a snarling wolf mask, and her mother's was a smooth, porcelain-like mask with no mouth, only two blank eyes. They nodded approvingly when they saw Olivia. There, her father said, "You're ready now." For the first hour, it was all fun. Olivia and her childhood friends wandered through the streets, drinking spiked cider and laughing as children scurried past, their masks bobbing like little ghosts. But as the night wore on, Olivia began to notice something strange. The masks ... they weren't just decorations. People were acting differently. Her usually cheerful neighbor, Mrs. Klein, wore a mask shaped like a weeping face. She sat silently on her porch, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, making soft, hiccuping sobs that didn't sound entirely human. Across the street, Mr. Taylor, who rarely left his house, was wearing a mask twisted into an animalistic snarl, and he paced up and down the sidewalk on all fours, growling at passers-by. "What the hell?" Olivia whispered to her friend Jake, who was wearing a simple cat mask. "Why is everyone acting so weird?" Jake shrugged. "It's always like this. You get used to it." "Used to what?" Olivia pressed. Jake gave her a strange look. "The masks ... they change you. You didn't know that?" As the night wore on, Olivia's unease grew. The streets seemed darker, the air heavier, and the shadows deeper. The masks the townspeople wore felt alive, like they weren't just costumes, but a second skin. Some people's movements became jerky and unnatural, as though the masks were controlling them. At one point, Olivia saw her cousin Lily standing perfectly still in the middle of the road, wearing a deer mask. Her arms dangled at her sides, and her head jerked sharply whenever someone walked by, as though listening to something they couldn't hear. "Lily," Olivia whispered, touching her arm. "Are you okay?" Lily's head swiveled toward her with a strange, mechanical precision. "The masks remembered," she whispered in a voice that didn't sound like her own. "They carry the souls." "What?" Olivia took a step back, her heart pounding. "What are you talking about?" But Lily didn't respond. She turned and wandered off into the dark, her movements stiff and puppet-like. Olivia's hands shook as she adjusted her crow mask, suddenly desperate to take it off. The straps felt too tight, like they were digging into her skin. But when she tried to pull it away from her face, it wouldn't budge. The leather seemed to cling to her skin, as if it had fused to her. Her pulse quickened. Something was very, very wrong. She rushed back to her parents' house, her heart hammering in her chest. They were sitting in the living room, eerily calm in their masks. "Something's wrong," Olivia said breathlessly. "The masks ... they won't come off. And people are acting ... weird." Her parents exchanged a glance. "It's the way things have always been," her mother said quietly. "The masks keep the spirits contained. If we take them off before midnight, the souls inside will escape." Olivia's stomach dropped. "What do you mean, souls?" Her father sighed. "The masks are vessels. Each one carries a spirit, an ancestor, or a soul that couldn't move on. They live inside the masks, wearing us as much as we wear them. That's why you can't take it off. Not until sunrise." "Are you serious?" Olivia whispered, horrified. Her mother gave her a sympathetic look. "You'll get used to it. We all do." The hours dragged on, and Olivia began to notice the changes in herself. Her thoughts felt foggy, as if they were no longer entirely her own. Memories surfaced, memories that didn't belong to her. She saw flashes of a life she didn't recognize, images of fields, old stone houses, and faces she had never seen before. The crow mask seemed to pulse against her skin, as though it had a heartbeat of its own. Her arms moved on their own at times, and she felt compelled to walk to search for something, though she didn't know what. Around her, the town grew quieter, the revelry giving way to an eerie stillness. The masks had taken hold of their wearers completely. People moved in slow, deliberate motions, as if controlled by invisible strings. Olivia stumbled through the streets, struggling to hold on to her sense of self. But it was slipping, her thoughts merging with the thoughts of the spirit inside the mask. "Just until sunrise," she whispered to herself, a desperate mantra. "Just a few more hours." At the stroke of midnight, the bells of the old church tower rang out, their sound echoing through the empty streets. As the last bell tolled, Olivia felt a sharp pain in her head, and the mask seemed to tighten, crushing her thoughts. The spirit inside it wanted control. It whispered to her, promising peace, promising that she could rest if she just ... let go. But Olivia fought back with everything she had. She clawed at the mask, ignoring the pain as the leather seemed to melt into her skin. Her nails scraped against the feathers, and she felt the spirit writhe inside her mind, furious at her defiance. "No," Olivia whispered through gritted teeth. "You don't control me." With a final, desperate tug, she ripped the mask from her face, gasping as it tore free with a sickening sound. She stumbled back, panting, and looked around in horror as the other townspeople did the same. The masks fell to the ground, twitching like dying creatures. And then, one by one, the spirits inside them escaped, dark, wispy shapes that drifted into the night, vanishing into the shadows. By sunrise, the streets were empty, littered with discarded masks. The townspeople stood in silence, exhausted and shaken by the night's events. For the first time in generations, the masks had been removed before morning. Olivia's parents looked pale and frightened. "What have you done?" her mother whispered, horrified. But Olivia felt something she hadn't felt in years: freedom. The masks were gone, the spirits were gone. And for the first time in Greystone Hollow, Halloween ended with the living still in control.